Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Fluker. I'm the opinion editor here at the Orlando Sentinel, and this is our editorial board interview with the candidates for Orange County School District 2. There is no incumbent in this race, and so these are 4 of the 5 candidates who are seeking that open seat. We are going to be asking some questions, and then candidates will give us a closing statement. And I believe my colleague Jay Reddick, the Sentinel's Insight editor, has the first question.
Hi, thank you all for joining us. Being that there is no incumbent in this race, I wondered, just from each of you briefly, what's the main thing that drove you to run now? Why, what's the issue that caused it? Was there a specific incident that spurred you to run in this race now? And we will start with Ms. Ashby.
All right, hello. So currently right now I work in Orange County Public Schools as a school counselor, and I've been in education for 25 years. And for me, the push has been the policies that, come down from Tallahassee, and then seeing how then the board and the county has to implement these policies and the strain that it really causes on the schools. What do these policies that are oftentimes created by people who are not in education, what kind of strain does that put on our students? What strain does it put on the teachers, the other staff in the schools? And how is that impacting our families? And so, you see things and you hear things and you think, why are they making these decisions? Don't they understand what this really means, how this is going to look? And oftentimes you find that the people that are making decisions have never actually been in a classroom. They may never have had students even in public school. And so for me, it was really a matter of taking what I know and my experiences, both as a parent, as a former teacher, as a school counselor, and wanting to be a kind of a common sense voice and say, when you say this, I want you to understand this is how it's going to impact our students. And really, that's what drove me to go ahead and throw my name in the race.
Thank you for that. Mr. Collins, how about you?
I believe that kids must feel safe at school. I believe that I have the background to help in that cause. I believe that kids must feel not only safe at school, but they must believe that there's a true interest in them achieving their dreams. And I believe I have that kind of background to help them. I have a background in not only in technical school from the Air Force training, but also I've been in the other side of it as a college instructor at Valencia and UCF. And those are 2 areas that I am interested in seeing us expand on. I want to see kids that are interested in perhaps not attending college, but going into a technical or career field, that I have the background to help them in that area. And also I have the background of going to college and getting my graduate degree and teaching, like I said, at UCF and Valencia. And that has benefited me. So we have 2 areas that I would like to use my background to help our kids expand and reach their dreams.
Thank you. Ms. Salamanca, can you take it next?
Yeah, happy to. Well, thank you for having me. And my background is that of a student who went through the district for 12 years. I immigrated when I was 7 from Colombia. My parents landed here in Orlando, and I was one of those students who was on free and reduced lunch and who did not speak any English. And I was going to McCoy Elementary in Summer. And I spent 12 years navigating a very complex system. My parents were not involved in my day-to-day or attending a lot of the meetings because they were working 2 to 3 jobs. So a lot of the activities that are during working hours were not really accessible to them. And so this meant that I, along with my teachers, and these were all incredible teachers, were kind of really in charge of making sure that I succeeded academically. And I like to think I did. So it was teachers who got me out of my ESOL classes. It was teachers that got me into gifted. It was teachers who believed in me to get me into AP classes and encouraged me to apply to college. And it was them who kind of, in the magic of the classroom, taught me to love history and English and everything that is exciting to me still today about econ and writing and being an involved citizen. So at Timber Creek High School, I was student body president of 4,000 students, and Timber Creek was at peak enrollment. And since then, I went off to Berkeley, studied political science. And the reason why I came back was I started to see some of the most incredible teachers that made a massive difference in my life leave the classroom. And we know that, yes, 35% of our students and the teachers in the district are going to be retiring in the next couple of years, but we also know that 55% of them are actually accelerating all of their plans to leave the classrooms. And what that means is they don't feel supported, they're feeling burnt out, they feel at an all-time low morale. And so that means that those students like me coming up the pipeline of education are not going to have those same incredible teachers. Our district is 43% Hispanic. It is key that we have representation at the school board. Joanna Lopez is heading off to hopefully to Tallahassee. I speak Spanish, I'm bilingual. I dealt with the good and the bad of being an English speaker and a Spanish speaker in this district and my parents. So I understand it from schools that have a lot of support to schools that don't. Lake Nona and Colonial High School for this district are very different high schools and very unique challenges to each of them. I truly believe I'm the candidate most prepared to support them.
Thank you for that. Mr. Vicente, how about you?
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for having all of us. This is a very unique opportunity for at least the four of us to get together and at least online get to meet each other. Like Maria, my parents came here in 1979. I was 12 years old. I went to Tampa to summer school so I could learn English because my English was down. It was the basics of my name is Jose and the sky is blue. So after doing that for 3 months and came to Orlando, I went to Conway Junior High, and I was one of 3 Latinos in the whole school. Not in my classroom, but in the whole school. So 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, there was just 3 of us. After that, my parents bought a house, and we moved, and I went to Stonewall Jackson Junior High, which is now Roberto Clemente Middle School. While there, it was a ESL school. I played football, I played basketball, then I went to Colonial. And I will tell you that going back into my very first semester in Conway Junior High, I took an elective class, which was law awareness. And that changed my life and my course forever. And that's where I found my passion for law enforcement and for serving. Because up until that point, I wanted to be an airline pilot because my dad worked in the airlines. So I am also a product of District 2 schools. So again, Stonewall Jackson, Colonial High School. I went to Valencia Community College. And then I graduated from UCF, Go Knights, in 1991. After that, I joined the Orlando Police Department, where I worked from 1992 until 2021, a little over 28 years. And while there, I was a recruiter. I was a trainer. I was part of the labor and pension boards. I worked in internal affairs. And I've also been teaching at different universities at their criminal justice institutes since 1997.
Thank you.
A couple of issues. One being something that came to be known as critical race theory. What is your impression of this issue as it relates to Orange County schools? Do you think this is something that is a problem in Orange County schools? And what do you think the repercussions of this legislation will be? And let's start with Mr. Collins.
Certainly, these issues have been a hotbed of topics, and it's been really tough for the Orange County administrators and staff and teachers to deal with this. I have some communication background, as I said before, as an instructor in communication, and I believe that we need to open up better lines of communication with Tallahassee and the school board. And I hope if I serve on the school board that I can be that. This is something that's been addressed, and it's according to Orange County schools. It has not really been a real issue. It's been more of a perhaps a political issue. No, but nonetheless, it's certainly something that I will be watchful for on the school board. But for now, I think that we need to move on. I want to see us come together. I look forward to working with the new superintendent in bringing us together and unifying us. And also in the meantime, I think that I bring to the table someone that can also work with Tallahassee and to make things a little clearer of some of what Tallahassee is asking the schools to do. It's certainly critical race theory certainly is an issue that concerns me in the schools, but I'm not seeing that. So for now, it's a non-issue.
Okay. Ms. Salamanca?
The term critical race theory has been co-opted into something much larger than what it actually is. Critical race theory is a law degree class that is taught in a small percentage of law schools across the country. It has never been taught in our schools in the past. It is not currently taught in our schools, and it will not be currently taught in our schools. That's just a fact. That's just reality. Tallahassee has taken critical race theory as a term to limit what we can and cannot teach in our schools, oftentimes making it very complicated and adding more bureaucracy to our teachers who are teaching English and history. The books and the curriculum is not something that the district has as much control as Tallahassee themselves does. They approve a lot of the books that we get to read in textbooks, and we know this through the math perspective. So it is a non-issue for them to be talking about what we can and cannot teach when they themselves are the ones telling the districts what they can and cannot teach. I worry a lot more about the issues that are impacting our kids, right? We have 400 plus teachers that are not going to be in the classroom when kids go back to school in 2 weeks. And that means that students are going to have substitute teachers, if that. And what that means is we're not going to be learning in our classrooms. We also, from the federal government, have received over $800 million in the past 2 years because of COVID, and we'll continue to do that till 2024. And those $800 million have been added to mental health professionals, to our teacher raises, to our security and SROs. A lot of technology needed to make sure we have a hybrid environment for students that do get sick. Those funds are leaving our budget in 2024, 2025. That means we're looking at a massive fiscal cliff. That is an issue that matters because we need to find that money somewhere, or we need to figure out how we're going to continue supporting our teachers, our administrators, and our students when that money goes away. And so while critical race theory is all over the news, the reality is that for anyone who has stepped a day in our classrooms, those that have been students or teachers like myself or Heather in those classrooms, we know that that is not what our teachers are teaching. 50% of second to third graders are not reading proficient in our district. They are not reading. They are not reading yet. We need to get them to be reading proficient before we start worrying about what they are reading. And so I will make sure we stay focused if I'm on the school board.
Thank you. Mr. Vicente?
So my big emphasis is on safety. Before we decide what we're going to teach the kids, we got to keep them safe. Before we worry about what the teachers are going to be teaching, we got to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable in their environment in the schools. And that is something that obviously with what's going on nationwide, we need to really take a look at and be worried about here and be prepared for it, because as the saying goes in police work and law enforcement, you prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. So we need to, and like Maria said, I agree with her, we need to get back to the basics so that our kids have the fundamentals in order to be a productive part of society.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ashby?
Yes, CRT, critical race theory, I truly believe it's a divisive propaganda. It's not happening in our classrooms. It's not being taught in Orange County Public Schools. I actually am a certified social science teacher, both I think 5th through 12th grade. I was a national board certified teacher. I taught American history for many years, both in 8th grade and then in high school. This is not something that is happening in public schools. You know, unfortunately, sometimes people want to bring a hot topic and they want to enrage people. And when that happens, it takes us off what really matters. And so, you know, history has good and bad sides to it. There are wonderful things that we've accomplished as a nation, and there's some things that, you know, are a shadowy past. But again, that's not critical race theory. That is our history. And we do have to teach history to our students. And, you know, I always grew up hearing that, you know, we have to learn our history so we don't make the same mistakes in the future, you know, that we are, you know, doomed to repeat the past. And so history is really, really important. And people need to realize it's not something that is holding our children back. It's not something they're being taught to be ashamed of what's happened. They're saying, hey, but this is something that has happened in our world. Let's be aware of it. Let's learn the background that led to that. And then let's not repeat that. And that's truly what history is. And so that's just the natural progression of our subjects of American history. But again, CRT is not happening in our classrooms. I don't think it's something that we need to focus on. We definitely need to be having conversations about the safety, about the lack of teachers in classrooms, and the really important issues.
Thank you
for
very
that.
much. And I actually wanted to follow up on something Ms. Salamanca said, which is the looming, and you called it a fiscal cliff, and I think that's a pretty apt description. One of the issues that will be on the same ballot as this race is the question of whether voters should reauthorize a millage for the schools. Do you support that? And if so, what message should voters be getting about that prior to that vote? And we'll start with Ms. Salamanca, since you brought up the issue.
Yes, I am supportive. The reality is that this is an extension of an already existing tax and budget. So I think the key thing for folks to understand, and when I talk to voters and I'm knocking doors, is that this is not additional money that is being taken out. It is currently already been, and we're just extending it. And the reason why I support it is when I look at the numbers, and I work in finance every day, so that's kind of like where I like to nerd out in. You know, we are spending, when I was in school, we were spending about $7,000 per student when I was in the district. Today, we're spending about $9,000 per student. But if you adjust that for both inflation as well as just cost of living, as well as just the economy that we're in, we are falling about $722 short per student. So our purchasing power as a district is actually less than it was in 2007, 2008, which was one of the worst financial crises we have seen. This $722 is including the tax that voters are going to have. If we don't have that, that number could actually grow beyond that. And so this is money that has already been allocated, planned for, and projected in our school district to have. And we really depend on it as much as we depend on some of the federal funds that came down on the COVID relief pack. Much of that is going to go to infrastructure that is very much needed, much safer walkways for our students. Many of them walk to school every day. And so I'm very supportive of this. I think in general, as we're talking about decreasing funds from the state, decreasing funds from the federal government over the next couple of years, unfortunately, we as a community, we, Orlando and OCPS, will have to figure out how we fill these gaps. Because if we don't fill these gaps on the fiscal side, ultimately, the ones who pay that price are our students with not high quality curriculum, schools, our teachers. We know they're already underpaid compared to their professional peers. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm excited to tackle if I could be on the school board and figure out how we plan ahead. Our role as a board should be to have that vision and fill those gaps.
All right, Mr. Vicente.
as long as the money goes towards salaries, incentives, and recruiting fees for new teachers and the ones that we are here that we already have that are vested, then I'm all for it, because we have to be able to compensate our staff in order to keep them. Even since I was growing up here back in the 80s, I've had friends that moved to Seminole County because Seminole County has better schools. Why is that? Why is it that Seminole has always been better than Orange County? Why can't we be equal to or better than? And that starts with compensating our staff appropriately, bottom line. So as long as that money's going to stay here in the district and we can use it towards salaries and incentives, perfect. I don't want the money to be taken out just because we're getting it from point A and then it gets subtracted somewhere else, so we're back to square one again.
Thank you. Ms. Ashby.
I absolutely do want the millage to be approved. As it was already mentioned, this is something people are already paying. This is money that already exists in budgets. It is just an extension. It's not a new tax. So people need to first of all understand that this is something that already exists. And then besides, obviously, we need the money. It's needed for salaries. It's needed for growth. It's needed to support our areas and our population growth and schools and all of this. If we don't have it, what are people willing to give up? You know, that's the other side of it. It's not only what do we have, but then what programs do we lose? What that we're already offering people goes away? Is it extracurricular programs? Is it, little things that help us form that, fill that gap? So in some areas, for instance, when there's after school tutoring or after school extracurricular activities, there's something called the activity bus. And that's for bus riders, for students who don't have parents that can just come pick them up at 3:30 in the afternoon. And it takes them back to their neighborhoods in the evenings, and it will drop them off. Do we not offer that anymore? And then that takes away opportunities from students. It's something so simple that not everybody may be using, but it's absolutely necessary in some populations because that allows them to have that opportunity to stay after and participate in an after-school sport or a club, or stay after for extra tutoring or help. And so when we look at losing money, we have to look at what are those, resources that we've already been offering our students, and what are we willing to say goodbye to? And what is, again, that cost going to be down the line for those students? So it's a very simple decision to me. Yes, our voters need to pass this and allow us to continue to take this money in and target that to our most needed populations. And then obviously using that too to support our teachers. And especially this year, and as a school board member, I'm definitely going to be pushing for our veteran teachers to finally receive a raise, a real raise, not just pushing starting salaries up and they move up a couple degrees. People that have been teaching for 10, 12 years should not be making only $500 more than a brand new teacher. It's ridiculous. And so those are some of the important things that taxpayers need to be thinking about.
Thank you very much. Mr. Collins.
Yes, it's interesting that we are in this situation because unfortunately the economy is pretty tough on a lot of people. I really believe that a couple of things we need to do. We need to, we need better collaboration with the community. We have businesses that I believe are interested in working with us and improving services. We have many, as I said earlier, we have many kids that are not skilled enough to get into these programs. And I want to see that collaboration, and in return, that will provide some income for our schools. We need also better communication with Tallahassee. Tallahassee needs to recognize that our schools, our teachers, if we want to keep these great teachers, we're going to have to pay them, and Tallahassee needs to provide the kind of funding that's necessary to do that. I don't know what's going to happen with the voters. I know it's a tough year, and ideally I hope we aren't in this situation again that we have to depend on this millage. I think we need to move forward with a much better plan with Tallahassee and along with our business partners, and making sure that that we keep our schools well funded and we keep our great teachers, that we don't lose them.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Chris, I have a question if that's all right. We've talked a lot about teacher retention, and we've talked a lot about budgets and salaries, and a budget is an awfully large, it's an awfully large ship to steer, I guess, toward getting better salaries for teachers. I'm wondering who has ideas that would help with teacher retention that go beyond salaries. And Mr. Vicente, we'll start with you.
Well, and so beyond salaries, right? Beyond being financially compensated, employees like to be appreciated. So if you hit your 5-year mark, we cannot wait a week, a year to give you your 5-year recognition, whether it's a pin or a certificate or whatever. We need to do it immediately. We know it's coming, so why can't we plan for it and make sure that you're appreciated? We need to make sure that all the staff, from the bus drivers to the staff at the cafeteria and the custodians, also are appreciated as much as anybody else, because they all fit into the puzzle that is to keep our kids safe and fed and in clean environments. The best way that you can do that is, again, once their finances are out of the way and they're getting paid and compensated accordingly, then we need to give them a good working environment. They need to feel comfortable. They need to feel safe. They need to feel like when they come to work, they can teach without the hazards of being in danger of anything. The kids have to come to school feeling comfortable and safe, right? Because the teaching and the learning process, it's much better if they're not worried about what could happen in their schools.
Thank you for that. Ms. Ashby, over to you to answer next.
Okay, so I want to start with a little bit of history of what happened last year. Towards the end of the last year, Dr. Vasquez, who now is our new superintendent, sent out a survey, and it went out to all instructional staff, and it asked essentially, what can the county take off your plate? You know, we know you're burned out. We know it's been a rough couple of years. What can we take off your plate? And people responded. And then she presented a report during the school board meeting. And I believe the PowerPoint was, you know, it was very long. It was as far as all the different things from elementary through high school through, you know, special programs. People gave feedback. They said, these are things that you can take off our plate. Since then, I've asked people, has anything gone off your plate? You know, some of those things I remember being brought up, you know, are there less meetings? Is there more time to collaborate with your peers? And the answer is nothing's changed. So we ask in April, we know you're burned out, you know, we're now in pre-plan. What disappeared? And so we need to not only ask people, obviously, and I know there's been a lot of roundtables that have occurred, and a lot of people don't like to go to those because they're fearful of being stigmatized as being a troublemaker, a complainer. So the survey actually resulted in people saying things because it was a little bit more anonymous and they felt like they could share how they were feeling. But then as a governing body, you have to come back and say, we hear you, not just say like, here's what your list was. We hear you. This is what we are trying to do, and follow up and communicate that, because then people are going to feel heard. They're going to feel like, okay, you do have our best interest at heart. You are trying to, we understand change doesn't happen immediately, but you are trying to make a difference. And that is going to bring about a rise in morale. And when we, you know, obviously money is a wonderful thing, but morale and finding that feeling that you're being heard and you're being supported is essential for retention. And so that's what we need to do. Not only ask, but then show we're listening and follow up with action.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, what do you have to say on the topic?
Yes, one of the key things is to show our appreciation wherever we can, and I believe that the new superintendent has that in store. I have a family member that worked for Dr. Vasquez, and she said her skill with staff and people management. She's quite compassionate, and a very good listener, hard worker. And she's even interested in perhaps teaching a class. She's multicultural and multilingual. So it tells me that our superintendent has the ability and background and interest in showing appreciation to our teachers and of course our staff too. Certainly, I enjoyed being involved in the media before I was involved in teaching in college, and the news media channel that I was with took our helicopter and visited some of the schools throughout Central Florida, and we gave special recognition to some of the teachers throughout Central Florida. Last night there was a good program on Channel 2, Back to School, and these outline some of the great things that are going on in our school system in Central Florida and including Orange County. I believe that some of the great programs we need to, with the media, also emphasize our great programs such as STEM that has worked so well with providing the kind of technical and career backgrounds for some of our students, and recognizing those teachers that have done a great job with that, and showing the outcome of the jobs that came out of this, and so having some of the students indicate how they succeeded in those careers. So this is some areas that we want to head into, and I believe that our new superintendent is well aware of that and will work with us on that.
Thank you. Ms. Salamanca, let's close it out with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to folks at the district, I've talked to teachers, and the reality is that, we have school leaders kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, right? And this comes from teachers have come out of years where in COVID and post-COVID, they have had to be a little bit of absolutely everything. They've had to be mental health counselors, they've had to be tutoring assistants, they've had to work extra hours, they've had to be public health professionals, you name it. They've done a lot and they're burnt out. And then on top of that, you have a district who keeps getting, into conflict with Tallahassee about mask mandates, about budget, about all the hot culture war topics. And so the district has to kind of implement a lot of very tough legal new restrictions that impact the everyday of teachers, adding more bureaucracy to them and adding more fear to getting in trouble. And that's kind of the reason many of them are leaving. They're burnt out, they're tired, they're trying to retire. Like I said, 35% of our teachers are looking to retire over the next couple of years. So looking at solutions, right? We have to work within the system, right? Our legal team will do what the legal team does, which is to make sure that the district is safe, that we are not losing more money with fees. But I truly do believe the superintendent is fully aware, and the current school board, that morale is a big issue, not just with the current times, but it has been. That's with teachers, that's with administrators, and that's with how we've been treating them, right? So yes, morale and addressing them, making them feel like their job matters is really important. And that's something that we can do on the people level. And I truly believe the superintendent knows this is an issue. Hopefully she tackles it. When it comes to teacher retention and recruitment, a couple of things we can do. We need to review the job program, right? And work on retaining those teachers in critical need positions. So those that are in the job program that we know are going to be retiring soon, what does it look like to ask them to stay in the classroom a little bit longer? What does that look like in terms of salary? The second thing we could do is for those entering the profession, consider the entrance exams. Many teachers don't become teachers, or many folks don't become teachers because they can't pass the math test when all they want to be is an English teacher. So let's look into those requirements and figure out if there's a way that we can kind of lower the requirements for the subjects that are not relevant to what they're going to be teaching. We need to look at partnerships to fill the gaps of those roles, right? Whether it's Teach for America, which I know is a tough time for, teachers don't necessarily always love that program, but there's other programs such as that help fill those roles. We have magnet schools in the district, right? We have a law magnet school. We have CTE around nursing, around more technical fields. Why don't we make one of our high schools a teaching magnet school where we can graduate 200 to 500 students every year that want to go into the teaching profession? This will be the first ones that hopefully they were grown in OCPS, have benefited from our teachers, want to follow those footsteps. And, if our gap is 200 to 400 teachers over the next couple of years, even if just one third of those students consider staying in the district, that's a win, right? So we really need to be looking at the nitty gritty of teacher retention and recruitment. We have to get creative because it's not going to happen overnight, and morale is going to take a very long time to build trust back up with our teachers, for them to trust us that we are supporting and appreciating the magic that they make happen in the classrooms when they have kind of endured and experienced many years now, even before COVID, of a very tough kind of, follow the rules at all costs. You're going to be judged in high stakes testing, and kind of the reason why you got into teaching, the love and the creativity that you have for that learning spark is not the priority. So
Ms.
how we
Salamanca.
reward, yeah, that's it.
Sorry, it's time's up, and I need to cut you off unless you have a quick closing. But we probably need to move on.
That's all.
Thanks.
Well, and actually, we're moving on to where you were. Both Mr. Collins and Ms. Salamanca have brought this up. It is pretty remarkable that nearly 256 students have this last year graduated with associate's degrees from Valencia, and almost 8,000 students are graduating with at least one industry certificate that will prepare them to work. And a couple of you have mentioned areas where you'd like to see the district expand career-oriented education. But I'd like to hear more ideas that you have about that, because it is something that I think everybody really loves to talk about. It's a great success story. So how do we build on that? And let's start with Ms. Ashby.
All right, so this is definitely part of my wheelhouse, so you'll probably have to cut me off when my time is up. There are so many wonderful programs. One of the things that actually attracted me to Orange County, I actually taught in Seminole County, were the opportunities for the high school students, especially with the dual enrollment. We just didn't have the same opportunities in Seminole County. Right now, Orange County students, not only everybody knows about Valencia and earning the AA, but a lot of people don't realize we have agreements with UCF, with University of Florida through their online program. This year, we have an agreement now with FAMU. Timber Creek High School, where I work, actually has an agreement with Embry-Riddle, where we have students in their pilot program and drone program. So there are certainly those university type programs that students can start taking classes on while they're still in high school. And those credits are earned to go towards a higher degree, but then they also receive credit for high school. So in other words, if a student takes ENC 1101, that beginning English class, they're getting that taken care of for college, but then they're also getting that to count as one of their English credits still in high school. And that's how they're able to do this and still graduate high school and, pretty much, get maybe the first 2 years of college taken care of on that AA, working towards a bachelor's degree route. But let's not forget about our career and technical programs. And that is definitely something where I think we need to grow. And I think a lot of people are really starting to see that. I've had the wonderful ability to work with students over the years and really push the Orange Technical College as being a reliable option. Yes, some of their programs are more technical in nature with multimedia design and pharmacy tech and some hard, you're still going to have probably go to college type things. But they also have, mechanics. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I had a student with 2 years to Orange Technical College, graduated high school, had his first certifications, was scooped up by Toyota. Toyota then was going to pay for the rest of his certifications to be Toyota certified. And he was going to make more money than me coming straight out of high school. That is a success story. I have a master's degree. And after 2 years in the technical program and a little company paid, no loans for him opportunity, he was going to be in the job market. We need more situations like that.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yes, I'm very excited about a couple of programs, and that certainly is the dual enrollment with the high schools in Valencia and UCF. Uh, I have had a long history of working with the family, and the dual enrollment program has been really a great program. Our granddaughter graduated from Timber Creek, and she was also, by the way, in the drum major there. And we had a lot of fun following them as the Timber Creek band went up to Ocala and won the state contest. And so their music program has been an outstanding program that we have been actively involved with over the years. So she is going on to UCF now, and we'll have 2 years behind her. Isn't that great? And by the way, graduated with a 4.0. I don't know if she got that from me. That's a great program, and I want to see that continue. It's Lake Nona High School, of course, has Lake Valencia, in the next block to it, and that's great. And that is a program I'd like to see continue throughout our district and throughout the county. My background was from not just from college, but as I said, was my technical education was from the Air Force, and that gave me a great career in the media and on the technical side. And I want to see technical programs continue. I was talking to an owner here in Avalon, and he said that he has jobs, high-paying jobs that he would like to fill, but the kids just don't have the background and skill to fill those jobs. And I certainly want to see that. They have a good magnet program up in, I was watching last night up in Seminole County, and I'd like to see magnet programs continue where the kids get very good skills in many good high-paying jobs. So that is one of the things that I will be pushing for as I serve on the board.
All right, thank you. Ms. Salamanca, you can kind of pick up where you left off.
Yeah, so I think as a district, we need to address kind of the full spectrum of what happens to our students after they leave our schools, and how do we prepare them to succeed no matter what the path is, right? We know not all students want to go to college, and many of them don't. We've seen college enrollment rates decrease about 10% across the country. And we also know that the economy is rapidly changing, right? Including here in Orlando, right? A minimum wage today would require 117 hours of work a week. That's about 3 full-time jobs to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. So we need to make sure that those students who are not going to go to college and are not going to be making those post-college kind of salaries because of college, or might have not be super interested in getting into all that debt because nothing's guaranteed, are prepared with the career and technical potential of our district. This is a superpower of our district. I totally agree with Ms. Ashby here. This is an area where we have partners in education across the private and public sector who are excited to make sure that our students have the skill sets to get out with high-paying jobs, right? So if you don't go to college, our focus as a district should make sure that these students have the opportunity to graduate into high-paying jobs, because it is really important for their success, not just in the local economy, but long-term. I saw this crazy statistic about how 94% of American jobs created since 2005 were all in alternative work, which is Uber, Instacart, DoorDash. These are great jobs in terms of flexibility, but they do not pay a lot of work. And we want to make sure students have that opportunity. The second component is on raising the ceiling. It's not just about raising the floor of where we do for students, but the ceiling. I was the founder of the Super Scholar Success Initiative, focused on the students that go to top 25 universities. The reality is many parents do care deeply about their kids having a really strong, fair chance at going to Harvard, Yale, Stanford. And if their students are good in academics and they're good in athletics, our district is actually really good. I went to Berkeley. I went to a school where other students paid $50,000 a year to go to K through 12, and I was able to keep up because our district is very strong. So we also need to make sure they feel the same way.
All right, Mr. Vicente.
So my 18-year-old niece, who lives in a different state, was able to graduate high school with her cosmetology certificate license, so she can go out and get a job cutting hair. And she got that while she was in high school. So I am looking to add those types of education to our district. And we need to bring back shop so we can expose the kids, the students, to carpentry, to HVAC. So perhaps when they do graduate from high school, because like everybody else has said on the panel, not every kid can go to college or will succeed in college. Not every kid wants to go to college. So it is our responsibility as being members of not only the board, but of the whole district to make sure that they can advance in life and be a responsible part of society. Something else that needs to be brought back also is I would like to see mock job fairs at all the different high schools so that we can prep the kids on how to properly apply for a job, do a resume, and so forth. So these are skills that I think are falling by the wayside. And also, I would like to see students being exposed to a military career. Talk about getting your college paid for while serving your country. That's the perfect situation for everybody as well.
All right. Well, actually, we have come then to our hour, and so I'd like to go ahead and ask everybody to make a closing statement, and we will start with Mr. Collins.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. My slogan is putting kids first, and I believe our kids. It's been a big concern on the TV show last night on Back to School. It took up a good part of the segment about concerns about safety in the schools, and I believe that we need to make that a top priority. We need to look at how our schools are safe, working with Orange County deputies, and also looking into some of the counties are looking into a guardian program. And as long as they are well trained, we need to look at that too. Also, being someone with technology, I have talked to some of my friends in the technical field, and there is so much out there in the technology that can protect our schools. If they hear broken glass or someone tries to enter, it automatically sets off an alarm or closes and locks the doors. It's unfortunate that we're in that situation, but I'm afraid that that's where we're at today. I have 37 years of working in the media and teaching, and also in the business investment world. So I have a great background where I believe that, unlike the other candidates, I can help in the area of helping our kids with who want to go into a career field after high school. And also for those who choose to go to college, how to help them start getting college credit while they're in high school. That would be great. I believe that the strategic plan for 2025, the mission and vision of that, of Orange County Schools, is something that I can get behind and support. I want to be a unifier. I want to, as a former communication professor, during our new superintendent and what we've gone through with COVID, I want to help unify our school system. Yeah, I believe that children are our future. Teach them well, and they will lead the way.
Thank you so much. Ms. Salamanca.
So, my campaign stands for those folks who are optimistic about the potential that our district has in the people power. That is our teachers, our administrators, our guidance counselors, the programs that we have that we talked about. But folks who are also aware of how rapidly our times are changing, and whether that is on the political front, where we have school board districts becoming the culture war center, but really also on the economic front. Our city is changing, our country is changing, and it is the responsibility of school board members and school boards and school districts to make sure that our students are prepared for that future ahead of them, whether they go to college or they don't. And we also have to make sure that we are, school board members are a constitutional officer, right? We are supposed to, by the Constitution of Florida, to provide a uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and high quality system of education. And what that means, and I really want to emphasize, high quality system of education. That means supporting our teachers and making sure that they're paid well. That means that our students of all backgrounds have access to resources in their language, and there's families, regardless if they're working all the time or not, and being able to make PTA meetings, have a good equal access to the great programs. You know, I was a low-income kid. I spoke no English, and I went to UC Berkeley. I was accepted to Cornell, to Vanderbilt, to really great schools. I want to make sure that our kids have the same access to those opportunities, and that it's not taken away because we as leaders are focused on the nonsense that's coming from Tallahassee, on issues that are non-issues and are not happening in our classrooms. We have to keep our best teachers. We have to focus on preparing our students. And most importantly, our district is 44% Latino. I'm the only candidate that speaks Spanish. I'm the only candidate that knows from my family's own experience that, you know, that has in this experience what it's like to not have those resources here. And I hope that folks really appreciate the importance of having someone that went from well-resourced schools, less resourced schools, and really succeeded. So I'm here to elevate the success of every student and every parent's access to that.
Mr. Vicente.
María, me da mucha pena decirte, pero tú eres la única
I realized I said that. I
candidata
said
que hablas
that.
español, okay? To the benefit of everybody else, I just told her that I'm very sorry to say, but she's not the only Spanish-speaking candidate in the race as well. I am a product of District 2. Again, I went to all my schools here. My 4 children went to school in Orange County. They're in their 20s now. I am running because I still want to serve. Even though I am retired as a police officer, I am way too young and I have way too much energy to just sit at home, right? And ride bikes and cook or do whatever else. I still need to be involved. I have the need to still serve my community, and what better way than the Orange County Public School Board. And I know that not every teacher wants or it's apt to carry a firearm, and I don't want to arm teachers. However, what I do want to do, I want to arm the teachers and every single staff member with tourniquets and other first aid supplies to be able to stop the bleed. Because let's face it, violence in school is not going to go away. So what we can do is keep our students, our staff, our parents safer. And in case of that happens, let's, again, give them the right training so they can stop the bleed until first responders can get there as well, okay? I urge and I want every single voter to educate themselves, find out who's contributing to who, because that is a big issue. We cannot allow outside influences to influence our school board campaign right here. Thank you very much, and I look forward to going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Ashby.
Thank you. Really, I believe this comes down to, you know, who can work with all of our stakeholders. My background, I'm a counselor. I build relationships. I work on collaborating with all the different stakeholders every day. And I think that's something I can bring to the board. I love to listen to people talk. I love to try to figure out how is the best way to meet the needs of everyone and you know, make everyone happy. And, you know, obviously you can't always make everyone happy, but, you know, that's a skill we need to remember. We haven't had a person with a counseling background, I don't think, on the board since Rick Roach a few years back. And if you remember, he was one of the first people to really talk about standardized testing and how that impacted students, how it impacted mental health. And, you know, in the last few years, a worldwide pandemic, we've witnessed this COVID slide. And, you know, children still are afraid to come back to school in some cases. We can't discount the mental health needs of our community, of the schools. And, you know, it's interesting. I personally work with students who have 504 plans, and a lot of my students do suffer from things like depression or anxiety. And a lot of it has really grown in the last few years with the world that we live in. And so we need to take a step back too, and not just talk about, all the change we want to make, but we need to get back to normal. We need to try to remember this is what schools look like before everything shut down. And we need to work together. We need to work with parents. We need to listen to them. We need to work with the organizations like OSPA and CTA to make sure that we are, trying to come up with the best ideas to keep staff happy, because we need them to run our schools. With empty classrooms, no one's learning. And so these are the things that we need to do to move forward. And I do believe I'm the best candidate to be able to help coordinate that. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all very much for, and thank my phone for chirping at us. But I'd like to thank you all very much for taking time. We have covered so much ground, and there's so much we didn't get to. But I think we've given District 2 voters a good idea of who each of you are. And I appreciate you taking the time. This is a district race. It will be on the August 23rd ballot. If no candidate gets 50% of the vote, the top 2 vote getters will proceed to November. And I want to thank you all for joining us, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.